LFC family, welcome to worship. We are so glad that you are here, even though, once again, we're not necessarily in the same room together. We can come together for worship this morning, and that is still good news. If you've got kids worshiping with you today, head on over to the LFC Kids Facebook group where you can grab an engagement page. You can print off one for both of the kids, and you could print off one for parents or aunts and uncles or grandmas and grandpas. We don't care, and we won't judge. Pick those up and help engage your hands as you engage your mind in the sermon. Today is a good day, and we get to be together, at least in some way. So let's lift our voices in worship.
Gonna wait for the walls to fall. I know a name that will bring them down, and I've got a praise waking within my soul, and I'm not ashamed to declare it now. The light of the world trembles the dark. Prepare the way, the King of Glory come. Before His name, every fear must bow. And throw off your chains, Jesus destroyed them all. Up from the grave, He is with us now. Light of the world, trample the dark. Your name prevails, Jesus the great. weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph. And my God will never fail. No, my God will never fail. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. There's power. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. And every war he wages, he will. And I'm not backing down from any giant. I know how this story ends. Yes, we do. I know how this story ends. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. You take what the enemy meant for evil. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. You take, go! You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say,
Well, if you're anything like me, and if you've read books to children before, especially if you've read to the same child, you know that the kids tend to want the same books over and over and over again. And I got into a routine with my oldest son when he was a child. We read this book called The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Now, I'm not sure what it was exactly about this book that he really enjoyed, but that he could predict what was coming, and so we would read this almost every night. Amy or I would. In this book, the book begins here, and it's as simple book as the title shows. A very hungry caterpillar. It's about a caterpillar that eats. It begins here with an egg sitting on a leaf. And it says, in the light of the moon, a little egg lay on a leaf. Well, what happens is the caterpillar hatches from this egg and comes out hungry, as the book suggests. But he doesn't just come out hungry, he comes out very, very hungry. In fact, the book says that on Monday, he ate one apple. But he ate that apple and he was still hungry. So on Tuesday, he ate 2 pears. But the 2 pears weren't enough. He was still hungry. So the next day, on Wednesday, he eats 3 plums. But like the first 2 days, those 3 plums weren't enough. So he ate 4 strawberries on Thursday. Still hungry, he ends up eating 5 oranges on Friday. And as you could guess, as the pattern continues, he is still hungry. So on Saturday, he decides to eat even more. And if I can find this page here on Saturday, here's what he ends up eating on Saturday. It's pretty incredible. It says on Saturday he ate through 1 piece of chocolate cake, 1 ice cream cone, 1 pickle, 1 slice of Swiss cheese, 1 slice of salami, 1 lollipop, 1 piece of cherry pie, 1 sausage, 1 cupcake, and 1 slice of watermelon. The little caterpillar ate that much on Saturday. Now, as you can imagine, the book says that the caterpillar was sick. It was too much. See, he got into this unhealthy eating cycle. Well, luckily, Sunday comes, and he decides that he's got to make a change. He's got to do something different. He can't continue the way he is. So he does what most caterpillars do, and he ate 1 leaf. See, on Saturday, at the end of the week, it wasn't just one choice that got him sick, that got him uncomfortable, that got him into this unenviable position of being so full that he was sick. It was bad choice upon bad choice. It was thinking that maybe I'll just do it today and I'll change something tomorrow. But at the end of the week, it was all these choices on top of each other got him into this position, into this situation. So he doesn't like the result, so he eats that 1 leaf, and then the book says that he felt much better. Not only did he feel better, but he was satisfied. He was good to go. So the book says that he makes himself a cocoon, and he gets inside of this cocoon, and he's in it for 2 weeks. And he sleeps for 2 full weeks, and following these 2 weeks, the caterpillar emerges as a butterfly with big, bright, beautiful wings. So in order for this transformation to take place in the life of the caterpillar, he had to make a drastic change to his eating habits. The pattern that he had fallen into wasn't working. He wasn't happy with the results. But he quickly realized that the only way to get the results that he wanted was to change the behaviors that had led to those results. Today we're in Romans chapter 12, and in Romans chapter 12, the Apostle Paul, he talks about habits, and he talks about patterns, and he talks about sacrifice, and he talks about transformation. So I'm going to read from Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. Here's what the Apostle Paul writes. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. And verse 2 says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. Sacrifice leads to transformation. Let me say that again, because this is where we're going. Sacrifice leads to transformation. So let's talk about sacrifice just for a moment. Now, this word seems really archaic, and it seems archaic because we who are in the church and understand the history of sacrifice know that sacrifice throughout Scripture involved typically an animal being put onto an altar somewhere out in the wilderness or brought into the temple and sacrificed. And we don't do those things anymore. We don't operate that way. So this word sacrifice just seems a little old and a little out of date. Especially when we oftentimes today throw around this term sacrifice, and it just doesn't hold the same depth of meaning that it did in the Old Testament, that it does when we refer to Jesus as the ultimate sacrifice. But see, sacrifice is one of the main themes of this season we're in, this Lenten season. We talk about fasting, and fasting or giving up something is a form of sacrifice. In fact, sacrifice simply means this. This is my definition for sacrifice. It's the one that I kind of came up with to simplify it. It means to give up something of value in order to achieve something else more valuable. To give up something of value to achieve something else more valuable. See, during this season, we sacrifice something in order that we might create space to hear God's voice more clearly, or to sense His will more clearly. We remove things that are a normal part of our lives that might be hindering that might be hindering our walk with Him or our ability to discern His will, so that we can learn more about God, so that we can be more dependent on Him. And of course, this Lenten journey is a journey toward the cross. That's a series we're in. And it represents the ultimate sacrifice that Jesus made, not only for me and for you, but the entire world. But see, sacrifice isn't just meant for the Lenten season. It's supposed to be a habitual pattern. It's supposed to be a characteristic of everything we do as followers of Christ. And Paul says in our text that our bodies are to be offered as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. Our very being, our physical, our emotional, our spiritual selves are to be offered to God as an act of worship. And that regular sacrifice, it's not where we die like an animal would on the altar, but where we offer that physical, that emotional, that spiritual self in sacrifice to God and to others. You see, this passage is about worship being embodied. Now, when we use that term embody, we mean that it becomes not just something we do, but it's who we are. We take it with us wherever we go. It's not dependent on the circumstance that we're in or the situation that we're in. When we embody something, it's who we are. And worship itself, it's not just songs. It's not just prayers. It's not the words we say or those prayers that we pray, but it's the very act of offering our whole selves to God. Jesus shares this same sentiment in Luke 10:27. He quotes from the Shema, which is from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5. And this is something that your Jewish followers would have said almost every day. Jesus says in quoting that Shema, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. And love your neighbor as yourself." Now let's focus on those words for just a moment. Heart, soul, mind, and strength. These encompass who we are. These are valuable parts of us that are to be sacrificed for God, to God, in order that we might gain something of even greater value. What's more valuable than our heart, soul, our strengths, our minds? But God says, give those things to me, your entire being, and I've got something even more valuable to offer you. These things aren't to be used just for our own good, but are to be released for God's use. And Paul says that we do this in view of God's mercy. In other words, when we do this, we're doing this because we are keeping God's mercy in view. God's mercy is a motivation for this spiritual act of worship, this giving of ourselves to Him. I love going to the mountains. I love going to the ocean. I'll never forget as a junior in high school seeing the Grand Canyon. And there's something about these three things, the ocean and the mountains and the Grand Canyon, that just overtakes me. They're so vast. And when I keep those things in view, I start to realize how powerful and creative God is. It's a perspective thing. When those things are in view, I realize how small I am and how big God is. In the same way, we sacrifice because we keep in view or in mind the way that God has already shown mercy and grace to us by sending His Son, Jesus Christ, as the ultimate sacrifice, that we might have the opportunity to be these living sacrifices. And one way that we change is to change our patterns or to change our habits or to go against the grain of what's expected, the generally accepted practices around us. Now, baseball is my favorite sport, and I'm pretty bummed because the last couple of days there was supposed to be opening day, and it's always an exciting time for me. And I love baseball. A lot of people don't get it because a lot of people don't like baseball because they say it's boring, but they don't understand the nuances that go along with baseball. There's little things that are happening in the game that the average fan wouldn't understand. And one of those things is called the sacrifice bunt. Now, this is a play you've probably heard of, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of explain to you what a sacrifice bunt is. So in a sacrifice bunt, there's a runner on base. And the batter, or more likely the manager or a coach, tells the batter that we need to get that runner from first to second, or we need to get them from second to third. And so the coach will give a sign, and that sign will be for the batter to sacrifice bunt. And what that means is when the pitcher throws the ball, the batter gets his bat. It's usually a little bit bigger than this, but I didn't want to bring a big bat here with me. But the batter sacrifices himself. In fact, instead of standing like this to swing, the batter will turn like this and put the bat out here, and will let the ball just gently tap on the bat. And so the idea is for it to go just a little ways so that the pitcher or an infielder has to come field it and throw him out or her out at first base while the runner advances. Now, it's called a sacrifice because that batter gives himself or herself up That batter takes an out so that the base runner can advance. Now, anyone who's ever played baseball knows that as much as we want to talk about baseball being a team game, it's typically an individual game. It's a pitcher versus a batter, and that batter typically wants to go up there and wants to smash the ball, wants to do something productive, wants to do something that will bring honor and praise and to the batter. But when the batter gives him or herself up for the betterment of the team, they've made a sacrifice. They've taken something valuable, like the acclaim that I might get if I were to get a base hit, and I sacrifice that opportunity for something even more valuable in the grand scheme of things, which is the success of the team. And this goes against the pattern of self-preservation and personal success that is typically pretty rampant, not only in baseball, but in our world. And one of the opportunities we have in our midst, in this situation we find ourselves in with these stay-at-home orders and the quarantine, is that our habits and our patterns have changed. Whether we like it or not, they have to change. And we have an opportunity, I would even go as far as to say a blessing, that we have a chance to kind of recalibrate. And this is important because, remember, as Paul says, the ultimate goal is transformation. It's not comfort. It's not the ability to continue in our habits as they've always been. The goal is transformation. Transformation is the likely outcome of sacrifice. Remember, sacrifice leads to transformation. Now let's talk about transformation for just a little bit. See, Paul says to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, this word transformation in the New Testament, so the New Testament was written in Greek, and those of you that are familiar with me know that every once in a while I'll pull out a little bit of Greek. This word transformed in the Greek, in the original language, is the Greek word metamorpho. I don't need to spell it here, but metamorpho, which means literally to change into another form. And this doesn't mean that I just change a few things or a few things about it has changed. It means literally changes into another form. This is where we get the word metamorphosis, as in what happens to a caterpillar when it changes into a butterfly. And here Paul uses this word to describe what is supposed to happen to Christians in their service or their sacrifice to God. The idea is that Christians are to undergo a complete change, which under the power of God will find expression both in character and in conduct. In other words, we are supposed to be so transformed, so metamorphosed, or whatever the right word is, that we are different. We're so different that our conduct changes, that our attitude changes, that there aren't just some aspects of us that are different. Literally, we are different people. And it's important to understand that Paul uses this term in the passive sense. Passive meaning that it's indicating that this transformation is something that we allow to be done to us. We don't have the power in and of ourselves to be transformed. We have the power to change our patterns and our habits, which makes room for God to do the transformative work that He wants to do in our lives. So when Paul says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, we have the opportunity to renew our minds, to change our habits, to look at things a different way, and it allows God to do His transformative work. This is the transformation that Paul is referring to in 2 Corinthians 5:17, where he says, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has gone and the new has come. Because of God's power and love and grace and mercy, we have opportunity to be transformed into new creatures who no longer conform to the patterns of the world around us, but are transformed into His likeness. Sacrifice leads to transformation. Transformation is the ultimate goal that God has for us, for our lives. Now, I've often wondered what happened to this very hungry caterpillar. See, I don't know, maybe there's a sequel. Somebody, I'm sure I'll get some texts about that or some comments here. But I don't know what happens to the caterpillar. And I think that's sad. That's disappointing. I know the whole story is about healthy eating and habits and stuff like that and making changes, but I'd like to know what happens to the caterpillar. It just doesn't tell us enough about the results of the change of these patterns and the transformation that takes place. See, this slow moving, chubby caterpillar whose world is about this big because it's so slow, because it probably has like one branch that it lives on or one tree, goes into this cocoon for 2 weeks and then comes out. And I can't imagine this. I mean, talk about mind blown. This thing whose world is about this big comes out, and when it comes out, it all of a sudden has wings. It has wings. So now its opportunities go from about this big to all of a sudden, like the possibilities are endless. They're limitless. And I can't imagine that caterpillar had to have come out and looked at those wings and went, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?" And I got to imagine that butterfly didn't just stand there and go, "This is awesome. The opportunities are limitless. The potential is there." I bet that butterfly went, "I'm going to go check this place out. I'm going to go test the limits of these wings." According to Paul, sacrifice leads to transformation. And this transformation leads to the ability to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. Like that butterfly, imagine what opportunities lay before us as people, as a community of faith, as a world, if we would just allow God's transformative work in our lives. Our opportunities and our potential would be expanded in ways that we never thought possible. Like that caterpillar coming out going, "Whoa, this is all new." We could be sitting here going, "Are you kidding me? Like, I thought my life was good. I thought things were okay. But now, because I've been transformed by Christ, because I've changed some patterns and changed some things, I've been transformed, and now I can understand, I can test and approve what God's will is. His good, pleasing, and perfect will." And if we can understand and have the ability to comprehend what His will is for us, the opportunities to live are out of this world. Living sacrifices. Finishing up here in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9, Paul writes this. He's quoting the Old Testament, but he says, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind can conceive what God has in store for those who love Him. See, we show love for God by our worship, by in everything we do, offering ourselves, our heart, our soul, our mind, and our strength as living sacrifices. When we do this, this leads to transformation. The transformative work that God wants to do in us, and opens up opportunities and possibilities that we could have never imagined. May it be so. Well, we have, as we've talked about in past weeks, we have continued opportunities to stay connected. And we just want to keep that in front of you. Check out our website. Continue to go there, lawrencefirst.org. You can see past sermon series. You can see things that are coming up. Our Facebook pages, our church Facebook page, our teen Facebook page, our kids Facebook page. There's tons of opportunities for us to stay connected during this time that's just a little bit different. And finally, don't forget, ministry does continue. And you, church, have been faithful. You've stepped up during this time, and the giving continues to be strong. But you can give through our Tithely app. You could drop off a check here at the church. You could mail a check in. But let's stay connected by investing in what God is doing to expand His kingdom through Lawrence First Church. Now, may you go now, and may you walk in the transformative power of the grace and mercy of God. Go.